All right, it's a great day in America. So I haven't done one of these videos in a while. This one is called episode 13. I'm calling it A Million Veteran Millionaires. And so for the last couple of months, I've been really working to develop more interest within the veteran community on a variety of subjects. You know, as I mentioned before, I spent a lot of time working with the American Legion, the Marine Corps League, Veterans Business Force, and the Houston Regional Veterans Chamber. And as I've mentioned to my network, you know, what drives me to really focus on the veteran as a veteran myself, and I'm going to go a little bit into my military history because I had mentioned that in a previous video, just so people have a little bit of background. But I really believe as goes the veteran goes the nation. And so ultimately, if you're going to take down a nation, or you're going to take down a stronghold, you want to take down the mighty men and women first, so that you can plunder civilization. So all this to say is, you know, veterans, you know, they sign up for a duty, they sign a check that they're willing to cash with their life, and they go on their own prospective journeys for a variety of different reasons. You know, some of it is because the nation has been attacked and they wanted to do something about it, or some of them believe that they want to serve a cause higher than themselves. So with that being said, I currently serve, you know, many capacities within some of these groups, you know, on the PR side, the marketing side, to help leverage and focus on how do we reach the next generation. Because it really is about passing the baton to the next generation. When I say generation, for example, the next generation being the millennials, 19 to 36, and then you got Generation Z coming up. They're 19, 20 years old, coming up on 20 years old now. In a couple of years, they'll be veterans as well. And so what I've learned is, you know, a lot of the vets, you know, have different interests. You know, some of them are retired, some of them are close to retiring. A lot of them are doing, you know, they're taking this retired aspect of their life and giving to the community on a variety of different needs, from helping to champion Americanism, helping to help other vets get services that they might need from the VA, or recognize, you know, how they can be of assistance if they have their back against the wall, and there's organizations to help them. There's looking at the children and youth, and of course national security. So one of the areas that I've been really focused on is entrepreneurship. You know, I say to some of the leadership, you know, these guys say, look, you know, a lot of the guys that are millennials and ladies, they're building their careers. You know, they're about networking. They're about quality of life, family, fitness, nutrition, special interest in technologies like AI, crypto, robots, drones, special interest in lifestyle as far as like car shows, or, you know, doing things that, you know, make life fun. And they may or may not be thinking about how they can use their talents and ability to help make our country greater, right? And so that's the job of the organizations that we're working with, is to how do we get veterans plugged in so that we can build our own community and be of mutual support. So I titled this one A Million Veteran Millionaires because as a marketing guy, you know, I've taken companies where they've done 1 million or more. They started a venture and went and cashed out, or, you know, they've maintained their business at 5 million, let's say. And when that happens, you know, life changes. I mean, it really becomes dramatically different. And so it's really exciting to see when that happens. But, you know, money magnifies you, as I've been studying this Lopez training, you know, so you really want to get your life together before you reach your success. So that may require a total a difference of thinking. And so we partnered with Molly Brown. She is on the East Coast in Connecticut, and she's a Army veteran, millennial, I would say, youngish. And when I talked to her, you know, I had mentioned, like, yeah, you know, a lot of times I'm looking for clients that want to get to 1 million or 5 million. It's not Jiffy Pop. It's not a cakewalk. It's not going to be a short-term, project by project thing. It's a long-term commitment. You know, just like with the fitness that I had mentioned in training. You know, I hired a trainer 4 years ago, because I was committed to the long term. I haven't reached my goals yet, but you know what? I'm getting closer. I'm really excited about it. So Molly said, well, let's do 1 million of them. And so if you go to millionaires.com, you can get more information on what we're doing. And right now it's a free platform on a Zoom call. We're just putting our flag out there and putting it in the ground and saying this is what we're doing. And if you're interested in being a part of that, we encourage you to come be a part of the conversation, because I do see a day when we're going to spotlight some of these people, some of these veterans. You don't have to be a veteran to even participate. Just come if you want to help veterans, right? Or you want to see and learn for yourself so that you can be a part of what we're doing. And with that being said, imagine, as we go through this process, I mean, I've already talked to venture capitalists, I've talked to service providers. We're going to have special guests that are going to help share their wisdom and knowledge. And again, it's a free platform. You can tune in. And the first one's going to be April 26th of 2022. I don't want to date this video, but it's going to be every fourth Tuesday of the month at the same time, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., where we'll feature some topics of discussion, maybe some homework assignments. We'll continue to add to the website. And as we build our community across the nation and around the world, basically imagine having 1 million vets that are financially healthy, physically healthy, mentally healthy, and also can be of help to their community even more so. So with that being said, I did want to go into my background a little bit on the military side, right? So right now, I myself, I'm 56 years old, I'll be 57 in June, and I joined the Marine Corps in 1988, served from 1988 to 1992, and never really thought about joining the military. In fact, when I was a young kid, back in the 70s, I used to listen, well, actually late 60s and the early 70s, I used to listen to the radio, and at that time, the Vietnam War was happening, and I would listen to the news reports with my parents, driving, and I had made mention to them that I'd never wanted to be in the military and go to war and combat, because I didn't believe in war and all that, which we don't. No one believes in war, even the veteran, right? That's the last thing we want to do. But later on, as life happened, grew up in Austin, Texas, and met my wife 41 years ago, April 30th, at Whataburger. That's a story in and of itself. Love came walking in, and I was taking orders then. I've been taking orders ever since. And so with that being said, we were young and naive, and when 1983 happened, there was a Beirut bombing. Marine barracks was blown up. 241 Marines and servicemen were killed there, and that was a wake-up call for my generation. And interestingly, I actually lost a classmate there, Lance Corporal Timothy McMahon. He was 18 at the time when that bombing happened, but prior to that, knew him. And when he came back, from the Marine Corps, he came in his uniform. He was wearing the alpha green uniform and his cover, and I just noticed a change in him. He was just more, had a stronger bearing, more manly, if you will, more confident. I mean, he was a good guy always, had a girlfriend as well. And so when that happened, it was really just a wake-up call for our class. I think 5 of my classmates wind up enlisting shortly thereafter. And every generation has a wake-up call, because then we had, the Twin Tower bombing, and of course, now our military is considered one of the most overly used military. We've been at war really as a country since 1938, I believe. So I decided to take the plunge. Actually, I went to, after I graduated from high school in 1983, I decided, just go ahead and go to college. My dream was to go to A&M, and grew up right across the street from Texas A&M University in the early 70s, and we had some great times with my cousins, getting to meet some of the football players, hanging out at the games, and combing the bleachers for money and cups, and just watching Bonfire, all that. But it didn't seem like my scholastic record was taking me in that direction. So right after high school, I went to Texas State. Southwest Texas State then. Now it's Texas State in San Marcos. And I had by then decided, I'm going to get good grades. I'm going to really discipline myself. And went to Texas State, or Southwest Texas, and for 2.5 years, and did really well because I was commuting. And then started kind of losing motivation. But by then I had transferred to UT. My wife had graduated. She's 3 years younger than I. And I said, let me go ahead and transfer to UT. And went there for about a year. And my grades weren't coming to where it wasn't happening, right? So I decided I needed to do something drastic. I needed to make a different change. And I really wanted to kind of prove myself, And so I decided to enlist in the Marine Corps. It was actually a recruiter's dream, basically. I just walked in and said, hey, where do I sign? And they didn't know for real if I was for real. And I didn't even tell my parents about it, because by then I was 22 years old, And so once I signed up, a few months later, I was heading off to boot camp, And boot camp was something I really needed. I mean, it really does train you and discipline you. And I needed that change. I needed that challenge, And I was really honored to be there. In fact, when I first checked into boot camp, they're processing you, and they, why do you want to join the Marines? And I said, I want. He goes, how does it feel to want? And that was actually a profound question, because a lot of times we live life without realizing that we want things out of this life. I was kind of thinking, living as if like, hey, you know what, going to live forever, and not having any specific goals and things that I really wanted out of this life, And I said, you know what, and you have to talk in a professional military bearing when you're talking to these drill instructors, but, I said, it feels good, sir. It really feels good to want to do something bigger than myself, challenge myself, and so it was a challenge, and I have a chat with my network and tell them, I said, I really believe, and I think some of my Marine buddies and even the Navy SEAL guys or Special Forces guys can probably attest, in boot camp, I said, I really believe they tried to kill me, but I refused to die. And so with that being said, I really felt that I was ready for the future, graduated, and when I got my orders, I actually scored pretty high on the ASVAB score, and I got orders to 4th Marine Aircraft Wing in New Orleans. And I had thought I was going to be stationed in Camp Pendleton and maybe be sent overseas, because that's typically what happened. But when I went in, I really wanted to fly Cobras. There was a program called MECEP, Marine Enlisted Commissioned Education Program, which would have paid for my last few years of college. And back then, you had movies like Top Gun and other movies like Full Metal Jacket. You saw my previous interview with Matthew Modine, Private Joker from Full Metal Jacket. So it was kind of really surreal to be able to meet him here recently and kind of rehash that movie, because it did have an impact, I think, on me, because that's before I went in. But when I got orders to the 4th Marine Aircraft Wing, checked in, and it was an awesome duty station. I mean, it was the headquarters for the 4th Marine Aircraft Wing. We serviced the active duty around the world, and we also had active duty that processed the reservists when they did their duties and whatnot. But I was actually active duty, responsible for 350 Marines. I served in the admin section, the unit diary, which was basically if you were in the system, I'd get you joined to the system. I got my Marines paid. If they got married, I changed all the records. If they improved their education, that information would be in there, any qualifications, any disciplinary, if they went traveling to different duty stations, whatever. My job was to enter all that into the computer so that it would process and keep a historical record of everything that our personnel did. But thankfully, I had an awesome XO. He knew about the program that I was going into. By then, I'd been promoted to Lance Corporal. When I got out of boot camp, I was a PFC. Went to Lance Corporal and then got promoted meritoriously to Corporal. And as I'm going through the review process for MECEP, the first year didn't get accepted. They were looking for corporals, even though the minimum requirements was Lance Corporal. And by the time I made it to Corporal, I had gotten accepted to the program. And it was really exciting because by then I was doing a lot of volunteer work, doing color guards, if you imagine, and 4th Marine Aircraft Wing New Orleans. I mean, you had all these parades. I didn't do the parades, but I did the banquets for a lot of the parades. And so we were treated like royalty. We do the colors, and we had food and drink, and we had special assignments to do as far as like coming to schools and any kind of organizational type presentations. We did that. I drove generals. I did Taylor's Kids. So that was a program that a rich billionaire gas guy was paying for scholarships for underprivileged youth. They had a C+ and above. He would pay for their college, and we did some boot camp experiences with them. I drove generals, like I mentioned, and it was really kind of one thing. I had an opportunity to drive a 3-star general, General Pittman. And he actually was a historical figure because he was known for jumping in a helicopter, C-46, I believe it was, when there was a sniper down in New Orleans back in the 80s. He saw it on TV and commandeered a machine gunner. They went up there to I guess, stop the guy from shooting any more people or shooting at people. And so my job was to take him to the different locations while he was visiting. And one of those locations is we went to meet with the police chief to kind of rehash the story. So that was kind of interesting. But anyway, got accepted to the program. I was going to Tulane University at night, which was also kind of awesome, that I got special approval to go to a private university that would be considered a Ivy League. I found out later, and just was really an awesome time of study. I mean, it was a lot of sacrifice because my wife and I were putting each other through college, and there's, it was really just tough, because one time my mother came to visit us, we were married to them, and she was going to UNO and I was going to Tulane, and she was working at a banking job during the day. And so money was tight, not to mention we were planning for our future, and my mother came to visit one day. We had stacks of tuna, and ramen noodles. So she thought we had a cat. She goes, y'all have a cat? And no, that's our food, But of course, we just made the best of it, and we knew that we had a destination. Well, Fast forward, got accepted to the program. It came out in the Navy Times, and then 66 of us had gotten selected, and I think 350 people had applied for MESEP, and so things were looking great, man. I was, perfect height for Cobras. I was 5'6", had 20/20 vision. Don't have that now, and but I don't fit in a cockpit now. but anyway, they wound up cutting 6 of us, and by then I'd been recommended for meritorious sergeant, just because of all my volunteerism and just really putting my nose to the grindstone. And so that being said, I had been accepted to A&M at that point, which was my dream come true, so everything that I had sacrificed for it and worked hard for was coming to fruition. My grades at Tulane were awesome. Was everything that the Marine Corps had taught me about leadership and group, because they did group projects and of course research and all that kind of stuff. And so since I was getting out, really there was an option for either going to the reserves or staying on active duty. And since I was recommended for a sergeant, they were wanting to see what I wanted to do. I said, well, as a reserve, I'll go to reserve if because I needed to get out of the Marine Corps at that point to go to A&M, but I didn't want to go to a new reserve unit and kind of start over. And unfortunately, they had to keep the sergeant rank to the active duty side. So, well, we can't really give away the promotion to a reserve, because we need those in the active duty, because Marines are really frugal when it comes to their promotion. So, hindsight being 20/20, I probably should have gone into a reserve unit, and I felt, I felt like a sergeant already, right? It's like, I don't want to go to a new unit and kind of have to prove myself again, was my thinking back then. And interestingly, I wound up connecting with one of my boot camp buddies. He graduated from MCRD at the same time, and he was the command sergeant major out here in Ellington, here in Houston, Texas. And we connected on a project about 3 or 4 years ago, and we both like, hey, I know your name. Hey, I know your name. So he actually did well for himself. He retired sergeant major and lives here in the area. So that's kind of my military history background. But again, here recently, I've done a lot of volunteer work in the past, but here recently, last 4 or 5 years, I've really zeroed in on working with veterans. And so if you're a veteran, for this episode and you want to reach out and connect, I'd love to be able to chat with you about what your life goals are, what your mission is, but definitely focusing on entrepreneurship, career building, family, fitness, health, nutrition, reading, reading a lot of books these days. I think since January 1st, I mentioned that, I schedule 30 minutes to read every day. Well, since January 1st, I think I've read over 30 books now. I probably have 10 or 15 books open, but that's good, because now I'm reading actually more than 30 minutes. So any free time that I have, I take a book with me. I also organize my collection of books that have been signed by famous authors, etc. So I have a whole shelf of just like the last 15 years. Like, it's amazing the people I've gotten to meet and the actual people that wrote the book, that kind of thing, famous people even, some maybe not so known. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this episode. The book I'm reading now is called Flow. It was recommended by Lopez, and I recommend, if you want to read that book, because everybody wants to live a good life, right? So flow is really about how to achieve that level of excellence in your life in all areas, utilizing all 5 of your senses, using your thinking power, using music, using exercise, whatever the disciplines are that, you want to map out. And again, I suggest you getting a part of this A Million Veteran Millionaires, because Molly's going to help us map out what does our future life look like, when it comes to our family, our health, our travel, books that we want to write, things that we want to do before we leave this earth, right? And of course, when you make the millions that you want to make, you don't want to have trouble with it, right? You don't want to be in lawsuits. You don't want to become a different person that no one likes, right? And so you want to maintain this balance. And so that's really kind of the purpose of the mindset engineering. And I myself am going to be a student. That's one of the reasons why we're partnering, is like, I want her to share with me the insights and learning that she has put together. And again, it is a proven discipline. It's an engineering model. We're going to go through some processes, and you're going to see the tangible results, right? And so, no harm, no foul. Check it out and tell others about it. A Million Veteran Millionaires. It can happen. Take care.